My name is Aletha Keogh,
I'm Miriam Cutelis.
and we are art teachers in Arlington County, and we are lucky enough to be working together. And we came up with a uh, great unit that could be done both in hybrid or virtual or in person. And it is called the Superhero Unit. So let's check it out.
So the first lesson we have is we talk about our bodies and how our bodies communicate um, a lot of meaning depending on how we hold it. I happen to teach in Spanish, so these are some of the slides from our PowerPoint presentation.
And every intro class, we have a welcome to art page with Bitmojis that match what our lesson will be about. So here is Miss Cutelis, here is mine. And you can see that we only need, the students only need pencils, erasers, or any drawing tool and a piece of paper. And so we always include our content and language objectives. And do you want to read those, Miss Cutelis?
Yes. So what we do is we normally do it in both languages. Sometimes we'll have two separate slides. And I don't have to read it in Spanish, but basically it's a very nice and clear and concise objective that the kids can understand about what they will know by the end of this one lesson.
And we made sure that it was simple yet meaningful. And so the first lesson is about identifying gestures, identifying movement and the feelings that match that gesture. Yep. And so
So yeah.
we included Bitmojis with lots of different gestures to
And
make it
what could
more.
it mean?
And
Right.
what could it mean? And and then we gave examples of artist renderings. It won't let me. And then we talked about the different proportions, exactly how the body is broken up in shapes.
And I would also say that sometimes depending on how long your synchronous or asynchronous or concurrent classes, these are things. I think Aletha included this. I wasn't really addressing the body proportions as much, so I think it's good to know that you can include everything that we say, or you can take little pieces of what we say and try it.
Absolutely, because it depends on the class and how far they're able to go. So it's just good differentiation. And then always, I love, this is Miss Cutelis or Miriam. I know we're not in school. Miriam's really good about putting in very clear visuals to help the kids really be able to access the project with whatever materials they have.
And dry erase is something that they all had access to this year, and they were able to take a dry erase board at home, so they did have that. And so
Right, but just reminding them to take that picture to document their artwork is so
right.
important. So always remember, depending on the material, they still need to document. And this is that same slide in Spanish. And then these were really cool. We went through a series of artist images, asking the students to identify the emotion they saw based on the gesture.
And again, a lot of times I think we put in a lot more slides than we needed. Like sometimes I might be able to get through two of these, or maybe all of them, or sometimes not at all. So it's just nice to have those there. So because it's always better to have more than less.
Absolutely. So we wanted to make sure we at least addressed the gesture and then the action. What are these characters doing? And that's why we broke it down, and the emotion that goes along with it.
And can you explain how I mean, for me, when I manage this is a great way to have a back and forth conversation with the students and not just be talking at them the whole time. So this is a good way to elicit some participation. Is there a specific tip that you might have, how to elicit participation without it having being everyone?
Right. So what I did in my synchronous class, and this was all virtual, was have the students hold up their finger to vote. So they would turn their camera on, or if the students weren't comfortable turning their camera on, they could type it in the chat. And so then that way you are able to get through more slides, but with more interaction. And again, like Miriam said, just the more slides, the better, depending on the class. You might be able to get through all of these slides, or you might only be able to get through a couple. And then these are just another examples of how to draw the body in a more simplified form. And then what we did was we used
I think there might be an image from no.
no, in our next slide. So let's go to our next slide because there is an image. So this is our job was we had cut out pieces of paper. Miriam came up with this great idea, cut pieces of paper, and we arranged them in different poses, and the students had to quickly draw, do gesture drawing, and this was our mannequin, and the kids had so much fun doing that.
It also breaks it up into just basic geometric shapes. So for one arm, for example, it was just two long rectangles, and the hand, same thing with each leg. You have two, and then that way you can bend it, because the idea of a bent knee or a bent arm is starting to solidify by fourth, fifth grade. But some of the kids are still using, although they know your arm bends, they still are using sort of either curvy lines to show that, or not at all, just drawing them straight.
It's absolutely correct. And so that was just good practice and intro into our second lesson, which was now we're taking into consideration superheroes, adding to those gesture drawings.
Oh, can I say one thing about the first lesson really quickly?
Please.
So basically, we moved those pieces around and had several poses. So for however much time you have, that whole time is spent repositioning those pieces so that kids can practice drawing them the way you would in a class if you had those standing mannequins, those little mannequins. So this is kind of doing that, but without those mannequins. So let's go to
No,
lesson.
absolutely correct. Yeah, I'm so glad you said that because that's exactly what it is. And again, we have our intro and our objective. This time we're introducing outfits, superhero outfits to create that new character. And then always in the last 5 minutes, taking time for kids to share what they created. So describing their outfit. But this time, so we introduced very basic things. Do you want to go over that?
Yeah, well, it builds upon what we just learned the day before or the week before, the lesson before, in which you're drawing the body first, and then you're basically drawing, like where the shirt would end if it's a short sleeve or long sleeve, and adding the other sort of elements like gloves or hats or full masks or small just eye coverings or capes. This is a really good example, just sort of how we would add little pieces to it. So the pose now is staying still, but we're adding very specific details. And then the symbol as well.
Right, because for this lesson, we already practiced our gesture. And then for this lesson, we want our main focus was to show them how, exactly like Miriam said, how to add clothing to their character. And then, of course, giving them so many examples to choose from, including a symbol that we ask them to make up themselves instead of copy. And so the next one is when we reintroduce the gesture drawing, because now they're comfortable making their gestures. Now they're comfortable adding an outfit. So how to combine those two how to combine those two skills. And so again, their job, we invited them to make their own.
The
What?
cardboard mannequin. Yeah.
Yeah, invited them to make their own flat mannequin. Yeah, their own flat
Well, they
Stanley, right?
could. They could, but I think that for this one, at least what I did was I chose 4 different poses that were already pre-chosen and pre-glued on a paper, and it looked like that pink one that you see right here. And there's different ones. There's flying, there's landing, and there is running. So what the kids did is pretty much chose one of their heroes that they invented the day before. And of course, here we're always building on what we did the day before, and went ahead and placed them, drew the body and then added the details of their hero. So in the end, you have one hero in 4 different poses. Oh, climbing the wall was another one.
Yeah, climbing the wall was another one, which was great.
What I think one more thing is also
Yeah.
that for lesson, I know I keep going back for
No.
lesson 2, you don't have to go all the way back, but for lesson 2, another thing was that you're kind of playing a game of match, where you're picking a theme, like for your superhero. So when you're inventing a superhero, it's important that if you have, like here, your common theme might be wind. And so how would you have wind? What would wind through hair? What would your hair be if your power was wind? Or what would your hair be? What would your symbol be if your power was wind? Or what colors? So you're kind of matching everything. So if your power was fire, your hair, what color would it be? Or what color would your cape be? And what shape will it be? So it's like thinking through how thematically you could weave all of your one idea through all of these different aspects.
Yes, I'm so glad you said that because that's exactly right. And sorry, I'm gonna make everyone dizzy.
Oh yeah, that's fine. So we're now moving on to
Lesson 4,
mhm.
where we're putting all of that together. And so now the students have to not only think of now they've chosen their outfit, they've practiced their poses, and now we had done a lesson in the very beginning of the year with typography, talking about different fonts, and now they're kind of taking that knowledge too and creating. Their job was to create a movie poster. What pose would your character be in, and then also what typography would match that title. And so we went through a bunch of different examples, simple and complicated. And so zooming in, zooming out. And then here are examples of what.
I think there's a list. If you go back a couple, I know it's in Spanish, but I can translate it as far as like a criteria. And I think when you're coming to a final project, it's important to have a list of criteria. Oh, there you have it in English. So like the title must have large letters because as all titles, and it's easy to have them condensed because we have all these examples, and then it can be centered and the image should be centered and the superhero should be the largest part of the poster. And that's not always the case, especially if there's a couple of characters going on in there. And then think about composition. Like it has to make sense to you. And think about the space and what you're doing with the space and that everything is intentional.
Yeah, what story are you telling? And absolutely correct. The criteria is so important. And so we gave them this was one of our intros. What title would you give this? And then
I love the fact that you said the font, because I forgot that we had already taught font at the beginning of the year. But again, it's always building on what you already know and just constantly working with it in a different way.
it's so true. And so here are some examples of students artwork. And again, this is all virtual. So what they made at home.
And like,
And
look at this fire. Yeah.
yeah, look at that font, just matching. Um, Sorry, this PowerPoint is being silly. The lightning pot. And just notice how, I mean, they really took to heart what we were saying. And then at the very end, I know we had, so here was examples we pulled from our adjective font unit. Which font would you choose for Halloween? Just to start giving them examples of how you would think about words differently and that typography differently.
And again, just being intentional. Like nothing should be just from, I mean, everything should have a reason. And I think once you introduce that, they start realizing that, you know, the color of the belt, you know, should be the shape of it, everything, you know, should be
Cohesive.
along the same lines of your theme.
And so that is our superhero unit.
Yay. I hope this was really helpful. We have shared this unit with other teachers and they have told us that it's really helpful. So we thought, why not put it out there for people to freely use and change around whatever you need.
It was just a really successful, yeah, it's a really successful lesson. And, you know, we love seeing what other people are creating. So we wanted to make sure we shared something that worked for us. So
yeah.
Yeah, let us know how it works.
Yep, please do. That was really fun.
Yeah, it was fun. Bye.
See you guys.